But let's get straight to it with talk of La Liga and the title race right now. We're going to ask you guys, who are the current favourites? There's a 3-point difference between the top two. Obviously, we know the head-to-head rule would come into play if they finished level on points. So far, Real Madrid would have the advantage in that, but the two have yet to face each other in that second Liga clash of the season. What's your gut telling you, Ali Moreno?
My gut's telling me that Sevilla is not going to win it. I know that much. I am willing to put money on that. Look, when you look at both of these teams, there are reasons to believe as to why both of them can go on to win La Liga. And then there are also reasons to believe as to why they're vulnerable enough to come up short. So when we look at Barcelona and we think, well, they have a lead right now, they seem to have the momentum, they seem to be playing better than Real Madrid, and therefore they should be the favorites. Well, yes, on paper, I would agree with that, but I just don't think that this is over. I think this is going to go back and forth till the end because, again, both of these teams have enough quality to push themselves into the first position, but they also are vulnerable enough to where they're going to leave themselves exposed and they're going to drop points against teams that they shouldn't. Real Madrid continues to have all the experience and the know-how of having won La Liga, and Barcelona are still trying to prove to themselves that they can do it. And so them beating Real Madrid in the Supercopa final was a big step because it's a way of them proving to themselves, even if it is a Supercopa, even if it is in Saudi Arabia, even if it is in this sort of made-up tournament, it's still important enough for them to say to themselves, in a game that matters, with a trophy in play, we were able to beat Real Madrid. We were able to get a big result. I think that's a big confidence boost for Barcelona, and therefore I'm going to give the edge to Barcelona right now.
Do you agree with that, Rodrigo?
Hi, Kay, Ale. Well, first of all, I do agree with Ale that Sevilla is not going to win La Liga. Okay, we do agree that. The thing is that, I mean, for me, the main favorite to win the title is Barcelona because now it's in the top of the table and looks like the sensations that Barcelona have are much better than Real Madrid now at this moment. I know that you never can say Real Madrid is out of the race because we're talking about Real Madrid and we already know the experience that they have, and we already know the tradition, the history of the club. But now looks like Barcelona is one step ahead of Real Madrid. First of all, because they struggled at the beginning of the season, and I think they got over that first issues that Xavi has faced in these first months of competition. And secondly, because the Spanish Super Cup that took place in Saudi Arabia, I think for me that was a key moment for Barca to say, okay, we know that we've played a little bit better than last year, but we've beaten Real Madrid. And this is something important for Barcelona morale because now they see themselves much stronger and mentally even superior to Real Madrid, which is something weird in these past maybe 2-3 years for Barcelona. And that is why if they don't fail and if they keep like that, they could be the main favorites because it looks like Real Madrid are more focused on the renewals of key players and what will happen with Jude Bellingham and on the summer-winter transfer. So that is why, now at these days, I see Barcelona a bit more favorite than Real Madrid.
So what are the other concerns for you, LA, then, with Real Madrid right now?
Well, Real Madrid, they need to be back in shape, first of all, mostly talking about defense. I mean, if you see any Real Madrid game this season, it's not the same Real Madrid that used to play last season. And if you go back to that last season where I am talking about, you could see a Real Madrid, that they attacked as one and they defended as one. And this is something that Real Madrid this season have lost. I mean, on defense, you don't have a right back or even a left back. I mean, at the level that they were last season. And this is something that Real Madrid is struggling through this season. And then, the center backs, Militao maybe is the only player that is still more or less at the same level than last year. But that's all. I mean, David Alaba is not the same. We're talking about Rudiger, that he just came in this season and it looks like he still has to adapt a little bit more. And then you got Courtois, which is the best goalkeeper in the world. But, Militao and Courtois, the rest, I mean, I think they got lower their level. So that is why Real Madrid has to be back at that level on defense. And they have to be strong enough as they were last season, because if not, they're going to fail.
Ali Moreno, do you share the same concerns for Real Madrid?
Yeah, there's been and I think what Rodrigo's saying there is entirely correct, and that there has been a general dip in form for Real Madrid. It hasn't been just one player, and that's I think key in the conversation. It hasn't been a couple of guys that haven't been playing well. In general, there's been a drop in level for Real Madrid, and it has been across all lines. Defensively, Rodrigo just mentioned some of the concerns, but even through the midfield, which we have considered over the years to be the area of strength of Real Madrid, where they control games, we're not seeing Real Madrid controlling games. We're not seeing them controlling the pace with which they want to play the game, controlling the possession. That, I think, when you see that lack of control, that inability to mandate and dictate, okay, we are Real Madrid, we have Luka Modric, Toni Kroos, Tchouaméni, Camavinga. We have enough players to control and dictate the pace of the game, and yet you don't feel like that's the case. And when we talk about dip in form and an overall dip in form, we also have to go into the individuals. And so when we go then to the front line, Vinicius Jr., since before the World Cup, you already started to see that this wasn't quite the same player that we saw at the beginning of the season. And so he's more concerned about drawing fouls and yelling at the fans and arguing with defenders and referees. And the impact hasn't been the same. Fede Valverde, who's utilized sometimes in the right wing position, but also tucks into the midfield, he has had an issue as a midfielder and has had an issue in that front line as well, because we just haven't seen, again, the impact from him that we saw early in the season. We're not quite seeing the long runs. We're not seeing a guy who's taking the ball, running with the ball and taking shots from distance. We're seeing a tired performance from Fede Valverde, and he depends a lot on that physicality and that ability to get back and forth, to be that box-to-box guy. Not seeing it. And so if individually you have a dip in form, if overall you have a dip in form, this is when you become vulnerable. And this is why right now it's a critical point of the season for Real Madrid. I'm not so concerned as to what Real Madrid does in El Clásico. And obviously we're going to focus on that at some point. But right now it feels like it could slip away from them if they're not careful.
Yeah, that's coming up quickly on March 19th. Rodrigo, I want to go back to something you mentioned, obviously Jude Bellingham, and that would be more something that we'd be looking at closer in the summer. But there is time for both clubs to bring in players right now in this winter transfer windows. Have there been any murmurings or rumours as to any players that could be coming in that could help both of them with that title push?
I know that Barcelona is working hard because when Memphis Depay left Barcelona and he arrived to Atletico Madrid, the only sentence that Xavi mentioned in the club, it was, okay, if you get me Memphis Depay out of the squad, I need some replacement in. So that is why Barcelona is, they are working a lot to see any striker to replace Memphis Depay, but this is not easy for Barcelona because we already know what happened with the levers in the past summer transfer market. So that is why Barcelona are struggling still with the economic and with the financial situation that they have in Barcelona. So I think it's not easy, and I think they're not gonna finally sign anyone because what we know now on the winter transfer market is that all the strikers that are on the market are really expensive, and Xavi is not really fully convinced to get any of those. But let's see if in any last-minute movement Barcelona can get any striker. And related to Real Madrid, they're not going to do anything, despite any kind of departure at the very last minute. So they understand that they have enough quality squads, so they don't need to sign anyone. And this is something that Florentino doesn't really like, to sign, because the experiences that Florentino had in the past with these signings are really bad. So that is why Florentino preferred to wait till summer to see and to buy, for example, Jude Bellingham or any other great player around the world.
We're talking about the title race here, Ale, and there is another team that we should probably mention, because Real Sociedad in third are right up there right now. Just 3 points behind Real Madrid, I think it is, but they have played a game more than both Real Madrid and Barcelona. They've got a big week coming up. They've obviously got that Copa del Rey game against Barcelona, and then they're at the Bernabeu to face Real Madrid. So I suppose that might give us a bit more of an answer after those two games. But do you think they can keep up?
No. It's a beautiful, cute story right now, and they have been great, historically great for Real Sociedad. Best in the history of the show, in the history of the team, I should say, when we think about the 9 straight wins that they have. and we're talking about 113 years of history for the club. So it's a significant stretch of games and a significant stretch of success that they've had over the last couple of months. But yeah, the answer to your question is no. I think the problem with Real Sociedad, and we're beginning to see some of that now, and we'll see how they go through this week, that the depth of the team is not comparable to what Barcelona may have available, what Real Madrid may have available. So when you have injuries to Mikel Merino, like Real Sociedad has, how do you address that absence? David Silva seemingly also pulling out of this match coming up because of a calf injury. So that depth is going to be tested. And when you go deeper into the squad of Real Sociedad, you're going to find yourself a little short on talent when it comes to keeping up with Barcelona and Real Madrid. It's a great story. I think they'll be certainly consider a great success if they stay in the top four, which I think they will. But in terms of keeping up with Real Madrid and Barcelona, I think that story may be coming to an end probably by this weekend.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN+.